Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at AQA AS Psychology Specimen 1 Paper 1 Exemplar Answers for Attachment, which you need to know for AQA A-Level Psychology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Please note that these answers have been produced with knowledge of the mark scheme but have not been approved by the mark scheme themselves. There are 3 assessment objectives, AOs, in psychology. In this video they are color-coded. AO1 Knowledge, purple. AO2 Application, blue. AO3 Evaluation, red and green. In AS there are 12 mark questions, instead of 16 mark questions. For the purpose of this video and to avoid confusion for A-Level, the 12 mark questions have been turned into 16 mark questions. Question 1. In Vanage Zendorn's cross-cultural investigations of attachment, which one of the following countries was found to have the highest percentage of anxious avoidant children? Shade 1 box only. 1 mark. A. China. B. Germany. C. Great Britain. D. Japan. B. Germany. Question 2. In Vanage Zendorn's cross-cultural investigations of attachment, which one of the following countries was found to have the highest percentage of anxious-resistant children? Shade 1 box only. 1 mark. A. China. B. Germany. C. Great Britain. D. Japan. D. Japan. Question 3. In Vanage Zendorn's cross-cultural investigations of attachment, which one of the following attachment types was found to be most common in all of the countries investigated? Shade 1 box only. 1 mark. A. Anxious avoidant. B. Anxious resistant. C. Disorganized. D. Secure. D. Secure. Question 4. In Vanage Zendorn's cross-cultural investigations of attachment, which one of the following statements is correct? Shade 1 box only. 1 mark. A. Cross-cultural studies of attachment only investigate the variation between cultures and not the variation within cultures. B. There was no difference in the variation within cultures compared to the variation between cultures. C. The variation between cultures was greater than the variation within cultures. D. The variation within cultures was greater than the variation between cultures. D. The variation within cultures was greater than the variation between cultures. Read the item and then answer the question that follows. Proud father Abdul was talking to his friend, as they were both watching Abdul's wife, Tasneem, interacting with their baby daughter, Aisha. It's amazing really, said Abdul. Tasneem smiles, Aisha smiles back. Tasneem moves her head, Aisha moves hers, perfectly in time with each other. Yes, agreed the friend. It's almost as if they are one person. Question 5. With reference to Abdul's conversation with his friend, outline 2 features of caregiver-infant interaction. 4 marks. 1 feature of caregiver-infant interactions is interactional synchrony, which is a simultaneous and coordinated sequence of movements, communication, and emotions, such as hand and facial gestures between a caregiver and an infant, where the caregiver and infant mutually mirror and respond to each other's social behaviors to sustain communication. These kinds of synchronous interactions strengthen the bond between infant and caregiver. In Abdul's conversation he notes that Tasneem moves her head and Aisha moves hers, perfectly in time with each other, as if they are one person. A second feature of caregiver-infant interactions is reciprocity, which is a 2-way, mutual interactional process between a caregiver and an infant, where the caregiver and infant take it in turns to elicit and respond to the other's signals and behaviors to sustain an interaction. These kinds of reciprocal interactions strengthen the emotional connection between infant and caregiver. In Abdul's conversation he notes that Tasneem smiles and Aisha smiles back. Read the item and then answer the question that follows. Studies of attachment often involve observation of interactions between mother and baby pairs like Tasneem and Aisha. Researchers sometimes write down everything that happens as it takes place, including their own interpretation of the events. Question 6. Explain how such observational research might be refined through the use of behavioral categories. 4 marks. Observational research can be refined through the use of behavioral categories as they can help to establish inter-observer reliability. Behavioral categories should enable the recordings of behavior of multiple researchers to be consistent. Observational research can also be refined through the use of behavioral categories as they can reduce observer bias. Behavioral categories provide a standardized and objective way to categorize behaviors, meaning a more precision and less subjective interpretations through observable actions and defining what is classed as a behavior and what is not. Observational research can be refined through the use of behavioral categories as they allow for scientific data recording. Behavioral categories provide data that is easier to quantify and analyze to contrast with other methods. Finally, observational research can be refined through the use of behavioral categories as they allow for clarity and organization. Behavioral categories help to provide a clear criteria for what constitutes as a specific behavior and organize complex behaviors into manageable groups, making it easier to study and analyze them, which can lead to more accurate and consistent results. Read the item and then answer the question that follows. Joe was taken away from his alcoholic parents at 6 months old and placed in care. He was adopted when he was 7 years old, but has a difficult relationship with his adoptive parents. He is aggressive towards his younger siblings and is often in trouble at school. His last school report said, Joe struggles with classwork and seems to have little regard for the feelings of others. Question 7. Discuss Bowlby's maternal deprivation theory. Refer to the experience of Joe as part of your discussion. 16 marks. Bowlby, 1951, proposed the maternal deprivation hypothesis, which suggests that attachment and care between an infant and their mother or mother substitute is essential for a normal and healthy psychological development of an infant, both emotionally and intellectually. Bowlby, 1953, proposed that a warm, intimate and continuous relationship with a mother is necessary for healthy psychological and emotional development, stating that mother-love infancy is as important for mental health as are vitamins and proteins for physical health. Infants who experience prolonged and continuous separation, where the infant is not in the presence of their primary attachment figure, and deprivation, the loss of emotional care that would normally be provided by a primary caregiver, are classified as being maternally deprived and are likely to also experience serious and harmful consequences to their social, intellectual, and emotional development. Intellectual development. Bowlby suggested that maternal deprivation can lead to cognitive delays, difficulties in learning, and impaired intellectual functioning. Bowlby identified mental retardation or an intellectual disability, characterized by abnormally low IQ, where individuals may have difficulty reasoning, problem-solving and learning new information. Emotional development. Bowlby suggested that maternal deprivation can impact how individuals regulate their emotions, form healthy relationships, and cope with stress and adversity. Bowlby identified affectionless psychopathy as the inability to experience guilt or strong emotion for or towards others. This prevents the person developing healthy and normal relationships. This can lead to high rates of criminality as the individuals are unable to empathize with the feelings of their victims and also lack remorse for their actions. Social development. Bowlby suggested that maternal deprivation can impact how individuals interact within society and adhere to societal norms and laws. Bowlby identified delinquency as behaviors, especially among young people, that are considered antisocial or criminal, such as law-breaking or engaging in activities that go against societal norms or laws. Based on Bowlby's principle of the internal working model, the infant and mother's relationship is crucial in acting as a template for the infant's future parental relationships. If an infant has a good infant-mother relationship, then the infant is more likely to form a positive internal working model, which is most likely to lead to an infant having an ability to be a good parent. If an infant has a bad infant-mother relationship, then the infant is most likely to form a negative internal working model, which is most likely to lead to an infant having an inability to be a good parent. Bowlby saw the first 30 months of an infant's life as a critical period for psychological development. If an infant experiences prolonged, a loss of or an extended period of separation from their mother, then the infant will be deprived of emotional care, and Bowlby believed psychological damage and emotional disturbance was inevitable. He also believed there was a continuing risk of this up until the age of 5. However, long-term psychological harm and emotional disturbance could be avoided if a substitute mother is able to provide suitable emotional care and be sufficiently sensitive to the infant's needs. Joe's difficult relationships may be due to a lack of opportunity to develop an internal working model. Joe was also adopted at 7 years old. Joe is beyond the critical period for forming attachments. On top of this, Joe shows several consequences of maternal deprivation. Firstly, Joe is showing social developmental consequences, such as delinquency through being in trouble at school, intellectual developmental consequences such as low IQ, though struggling with classwork, and emotional developmental consequences such as affectionless psychopathy, shown but little regard for the feelings of others. A strength of Bowlby's maternal deprivation hypothesis is that there is research to support Bowlby's proposal that children who are deprived of maternal care during the critical period become delayed in their intellectual development. Goldfarb, 1947, conducted a study to investigate whether deprivation has an effect on the development of deprived children using children from Chidi and Wartime orphanages. He found that children who had remained in institutions had lower IQ scores compared to those who were fostered and had a higher standard of emotional care. When IQ was measured at age 12, the foster group had an average IQ of 96, whereas the institutional group averaged only 68, below the cutting point that is used to define intellectual disability. This is a strength because it suggests that the quality of early caregiving, particularly maternal care, plays a pivotal role in shaping a child's intellectual development and overall cognitive abilities, underscoring the critical importance of nurturing and supportive environments during formative years. A strength of Bowlby's maternal deprivation hypothesis is that there is research to support Bowlby's idea that maternal love is crucial for an infant's psychological development. Marian Radke-Arrow et al., 1985, found that a lack of emotional support, deprivation, and maternal love can lead to insecure attachment behavior. They studied mothers who were severely depressed and unable to provide emotional care to their children. Consequently, the results found that 55% of the depressed sample of mothers had children with insecure attachments compared to only 29% of a control group of non-depressed mothers. This is a strength because it suggests that the presence of emotional support and maternal love, as emphasized in Bowlby's maternal deprivation theory, significantly influences the development of secure attachment behaviors in children, highlighting the profound impact of early caregiving experiences on attachment outcomes. A limitation of Bowlby's maternal deprivation hypothesis is that there is research to contradict Bowlby's idea of a critical period. Bowlby believed damage was inevitable if an infant had not formed an attachment in the first 30 months of their lives. However, there is research to suggest that in many cases good quality aftercare can prevent most or all of this damage. Kolachova, 1976, reported on a case of Czech twins. The twins experienced very severe physical and emotional abuse from the age of 18 months up until they were 7 years old. Although they were severely damaged emotionally from this experience, they received excellent care, and by the time they reached their teen years, they had fully recovered. This is a limitation because it suggests that the lasting, long-term harm of maternal deprivation is not inevitable even in cases of severe privation, as demonstrated by the case of the Czech twins who, despite experiencing severe abuse, were able to fully recover with excellent care provided afterward. A limitation of Bowlby's maternal deprivation hypothesis is that it suffers from gender bias and is socially sensitive. The hypothesis can be perceived as placing undue pressure on mothers as it primarily focuses on the mother as the primary caregiver, whose absence or inadequacy can lead to negative outcomes for the child. This potentially overlooks the roles of other caregivers in a child's development and assumes a traditional gender role where the mother is solely responsible for the child's emotional well-being, with potentially negative consequences on the infant if this bond is disrupted. This neglects the potential role of other caregivers or fathers in the child's development and perpetuates stereotypes about gender roles and parenting responsibilities, overlooking the importance of diverse caregiving arrangements and the impact of fathers or other caregivers on a child's attachment and social development. This is a limitation because it suggests that the maternal deprivation hypothesis might place undue pressure on mothers as primary caregivers, potentially overshadowing or disregarding the roles of other caregivers or the fathers in a child's development. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.